that was the last game, and I wanted to wait till after that game before I really went in on the Cowboys, because that was another game where the Rams were probably, everybody had the Rams winning that game going into Detroit. Now, first, I love the defending of the city and the home turf. And I wanted to see that fight in Detroit. We messed with Dan Campbell, knee biting and all of that noise that he talked about when he first got hired. But you saw that fight in that team. You saw a knee-biting, fighting team.
You did. Agreed.
And they were going to fight for Jared Goff. They understood the bigness of that with Matthews and fight against Matthew Stafford, who was coming home. That was the first thing. Before I can talk about what I saw in the skill, I enjoyed watching that great will, since we don't have it, in Dallas, in that team. And, I mean, they executed. What I found was interesting was neither team ran the ball great. So this game came down to a Jared Goff and a Matthew Stafford. And Stafford was throwing some balls. Hey. He was making some incredible throws, man. He was making some incredible throws. But Jared Goff and that team stayed right in there. And they fought, and they won that game. You saw the enormity and what that game meant to that whole football team. They played that game in that city. When I watched Houston the day before, right, we all thought Cleveland going to Houston and maybe that team was too young. When I watched Houston, I said, I can't make that mistake tomorrow. Now you see what that whole game meant to all of those guys on that team. They had come together and said, we're going to restore Houston. They restored Houston. They made a commitment one to another. They each was going to be for the other, and we were restored, and they did it. I saw that in Detroit. Even if the Rams had somehow made a last-second field goal, I still would salute Detroit because they fought all they had. I was ready to salute them no matter what. But they found a way to win. They found a way to win, and that was the key. And that's what I'm saying my Dallas Cowboys need to do. Find a way to win in games like that. One more thing, even though the Rams lost, I wouldn't mind if my Dallas Cowboys found me a Puka neither. You know what I mean? Because a Puka rise above all of your systems, all of the systems. And that's what kept the Rams in yesterday. Detroit knows the system pretty good. They shut down Cooper Kupp. He didn't do much. But Puka, this joker right here was snatching balls and taking balls from everybody. I had my guy, I said, give me all the information I can about Puka. I didn't know that Puka means, that was his nickname as a kid, little chubby kid. Mm-hmm. He has older brother. He has older brother, Sherman. His dad lost his dad at an early age. So he only had his older brothers. I said, this dude, I knew he had some deep fight in him. He had to fight his older brothers. They all played ball for all kinds of affirmation and confirmation because dad was no longer there. And you know, older brothers ain't giving it. I see all of this in him when he plays football. Go get me those kinds of players. That's all I want on my football team. You get me those kinds of players. Then you can bring me any coach and I can win with them. But if you can't bring me those kind of players, go get me a special coach because he's a hungry football player, and that's what Dallas needs. Hunger like him.
Yeah, but when they get to Dallas, they get full. But I give Detroit a ton of credit. There was so much pressure on this team, so much pressure on Dan Campbell, so much pressure on Jared Goff. Matt Stafford and the Rams, Sean McVay, Raheem Morris came in with no pressure, no expectations. They had already overachieved, even getting into the playoffs with this roster that they had. You hear Sean McVay talk about refinding and rekindling his love for coaching with this team, because this is probably the best coaching job he and Raheem Morris have had to do in their coaching careers because they didn't necessarily have the talent to start the year. You heard the storylines coming out of L.A. and training camp as Stafford's too old, his wife saying you can't trying to relate to these young guys. And you look up and Puka Nacua has the greatest rookie season of any receiver in the history of the game. And they go to the playoffs and they're in Detroit. And I know the Detroit fans had to be sitting there like, not like this, not Stafford coming back to Detroit and beating us after never winning a playoff game for us in his entire great career here. But he's going to come back and put us out of the playoffs in our greatest year in 3 decades. Like, I was sitting there like, no, come on, Detroit. Right. Don't do this. Do not do this. And they did not. They stood up.
Right.
They stood up. They made big plays down the stretch. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the huge first down at the end of the game. Jamison Williams. There was a Reynolds who was a Rams kind of giveaway. And he played spectacularly. Jared Goff played a really good game. And then defensively, they did enough. You know, we talked about the plays where guys are running wide open. Sean McVay can draw them up. Sean McVay, and he has Mike LaFleur, another LaFleur, as his offensive coordinator, who left San Francisco and then went to New York. And then, so if you want, this is a memo for the entire league. You want a great offense, then you look into Kyle Shanahan, McVay tree, and you'll find it. Kevin O'Connell is doing a lot of the similar things that they've done. But if you look in those trees, you'll find Bobby Slowik's of the world, the Mike McDaniels of the world. Right now, I think you got Clint Kubiak, who's the son of of Kubiak, and they find a way to draw up this West Coast offense that Bill Walsh created, that Bill Walsh was the innovator of, and they find new ways to dress it up and be really effective in this new day and age, and that's what they've done. But Ben Johnson, who's a coordinator for the Detroit Lions, is finding a different way, and it's just as creative and just as effective.
It is. Agreed. Okay, quick thought on Puka that Michael talked about. He ran a 4.6 40 coming out of college. He went in the fifth round.
He ended the year with 105 receptions, 1,486 yards, all rookie records.
So they list him at 6'2", 205. He plays much bigger than that, and he plays much faster than 4.6 because I saw a stat. He had
those are my comps too, exactly.
That's exactly. But he recorded the 6th fastest miles per hour with a football under his arm, yards after catch in the league this year, the 6th fastest. So it's like Emmett. You put a football under his arm. Emmett, he was a 4.6
Jerry
40.
Rice, different dude.
Jerry Rice ran 4.7 40. But you put a football under his arm and you can't catch him. And we
that's
put a
running
football
from them 4 big brothers with that football in his arm.
There you go.
That's what that
Which brings us to the last Rams play of the game, the 3rd and 14 throw. If we could see this to Puka, Detroit got away with a jersey grab.
Right, and even he almost pulled that one down, too.
He almost pulled it down. It's catchable, but he gets a jersey tug. If you can see, he pulled him backward.
Right.
And Puka won it. See, there's the tug. There's the tug. And you can't tell me that didn't hinder him a little bit.
Oh, no, that hindered him. That hindered him right on the rise up, too. So you exploding up, and you feel that weight, and you got to try to catch that ball. That should have been a call.
Okay, so if you give them that call, all of a sudden they are definitely in field goal range because they ended up having a punt on the 4th and 16. And if they get the field goal, this would be a little under, they'd run a few more plays. They probably could have got it down, 2.5 minutes left. And then we would have seen what Jared Goff had in him. And maybe he had it last night because he played mentally tough football the whole night. That was not the typical Jared Goff unraveled.
Well, he had one play that I said, what are you doing? You know, when he was doing, and then he kind of tipped the ball out and threw it both hands backwards. Something. What are you doing? Just
but he got away with it.
But he got away with it. They fell on it. But that was the knucklehead.
And listen, in the end, that was a headbanger's ball last night because they were getting after each other. And Matt Stafford showed incredible toughness because on the one play where he got sacked and he bounced his head off the ground, he took a shot in the ribs, goes in the tent, comes right back out, and here they go again.
But I was with the announcer. His eyes looked like they rolled back in his head on that pick. And, so I know I was like, whoa. Yeah. I was worried about it.
But, the Lions had been robbed at Dallas before. They got robbed in a playoff game against Romo. Remember that call? It was a weird late call in that game. And then they got robbed this year at Dallas in the regular season game. So maybe they deserved a call, and I was happy for them, as you guys were, that they broke through.
Yeah, but you hear what he said right after the game? Aiden Hutchinson, all the guys say, we wanted Dallas, but we'll take
I don't blame them.
Another game at home as a consolation. But we wanted Dallas.
They wanted Dallas.
Find me players that want people. That's what I'm saying. I don't mean to bring everything back to Dallas, but find me a Puka, find me somebody like this.
Find me Aiden Hutchinson.
But they ate their food before they worried about Dallas. That's the difference. They ate the food on their plate before they looked at the next meal. And this is the football gods correcting the transgression that happened in Dallas. Dallas should have lost that game. Detroit should be the number 2 seed and should have had 2 home games. Things worked out. Detroit has 2 home games, baby. That's just it. Always works out like it should.
The NFL God said, we got you. All right, up next, we got to get back to what happened on the football field to the Dallas Cowboys. What was the biggest reason the Cowboys fell behind 27-0 before halftime? The biggest reason.
No mercy, no mercy, no mercy.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.